Ladies and gentlemen, it is a strange thing that the world, wrapped in the grey shawl of routine and convenience, forgets the battleground it has always been. We imagine the supernatural as something tucked away in old tales, relegated to myth and shadowy corners of forgotten history. Yet evil is not so considerate as to remain obvious. The snares of darkness, subtle as they are, often lie where the soul least expects, in the very places we call ordinary. Yes, witches, not the broomstick caricatures of children's cartoons, but those who wield malevolent intent have long understood the art of masking snares in plain sight. For what better place to ensnare the spirit than where the heart is disarmed? There are 5 such places I would have you consider today, not for their evil, but for the evil that may be done there. Beware, not of place alone, but of presence. Not all curses come with thunderclaps and chanting, some arrive on whispers and forgetfulness. Curses are often hidden in plain everyday places. This is perhaps the most cunning strategy of malevolent forces, to blend into the familiar, to sow spiritual decay beneath the surface of what we call ordinary life. The human heart, dulled by repetition and comfort, rarely expects the sacred or the sinister to emerge from the routines of daily living. We do not suspect enchantment at the breakfast table or darkness at the entryway to our homes. Yet this very unsuspecting nature makes such places the perfect targets for spiritual corruption. It is an error to imagine curses as loud, dramatic, or grotesque. The deepest ones are quiet and unassuming. They do not storm in, they seep. A mirror on the wall may hold no charm or hex in the theatrical sense, but still it becomes the altar of a quiet spell, one cast with each whisper of inadequacy that follows a gaze. The mirror that once simply told the truth of your reflection now speaks with a second voice, soft but persistent. Not enough, it says, not like them. That voice, unnoticed at first, is the curse. Not cast in Latin or bound by bone, but laid on the soul like frost on glass, gradual, invisible, and cold. And what of the bed? There are places in the world where sleep itself becomes unsafe, where the dreams offered are not merely odd but corrosive. The thoughts before sleep, regrets, worries, temptations, if fed and stirred by the unseen, can ferment into despair. A person may rise each morning more exhausted than they were at night, and never know why. They will blame the mattress, the air, their stress, never thinking that the very atmosphere of their rest has been tampered with. And perhaps it has. Evil, when it cannot break the body, bends the spirit, and the bed, supposed to be the retreat, becomes the battlefield. It continues. The threshold of a home, that humble strip of ground we cross without thought, can be silently changed. An unspoken tension enters with each guest. Arguments break out before the door is fully shut. A feeling lingers like unwelcome static in the air. There may be no sign, no mark or trace, but the spiritual reality has shifted. The curse has done its work not with spectacle but with suggestion. Peace evaporates, and strife becomes the new norm. Even our modern tools are not immune. The glow of a screen, while seeming neutral or even helpful, can become a medium of slow poisoning. It is not the device, but the use of it, the content it channels and the habits it shapes. The spell is one of endless distraction, moral dullness, and spiritual erosion. Hours disappear, convictions blur, minds grow numb. The curse does not scream, it scrolls endlessly. This is the secret power of everyday places. They disarm us. And in that vulnerability the enemy works. The great mistake is not believing in magic. The greater is thinking it only lives in fairy tales. Mirrors can be cursed to twist self-perception, and they often do so in ways more subtle and enduring than any overt in our. We glance at our reflection expecting truth, expecting to see what is there. But what if the reflection does not simply show, but whispers? What if, instead of truth, the mirror reflects a lie shaped not by glass, but by suggestion, by unseen influence? In such a mirror, the curse is not in the object itself, but in what it slowly teaches you to believe. The damage comes not in an instant, but over time, as each glance becomes a small act of self-doubt. The face we see may be our own, but the thoughts it evokes have been poisoned. What once was a neutral reflection becomes a harsh critic. You look and begin to see what you lack, rather than what you are. You compare your features to others. You begin to believe you are fading or failing or somehow unworthy. The reflection remains still, but it now carries an accusation. The mirror becomes not a tool of observation, but a source of judgment. Its curse is not loud, it is persuasive. It does not change your body, but it convinces your mind that your body is wrong. This is how the curse hides itself. No smoke, no flashing light, no eerie glow, only the steady erosion of self-esteem, the quiet rearrangement of values. You start dressing for the reflection, not for comfort or truth. You begin measuring your worth by the image and not the substance. The mirror no longer serves you, you serve it. You begin to ask it questions meant for the soul. Am I good enough? Am I lovable? Am I valuable? And it answers not with facts, but with the filtered whispers of a world that thrives on inadequacy. The power of a cursed mirror is in repetition. No one is shattered by a single moment. Rather, it is the daily practice of doubt, the repeated confirmation of the lie, that wears down the heart. It becomes a ritual of diminishment. You check for flaws. You adjust endlessly. You become preoccupied with symmetry, with skin, with every sign of aging or imperfection. Over time, identity detaches from essence and attaches to appearance. The mirror becomes a teacher of falsehoods, and you its most devoted pupil. Perhaps the most tragic part of this subtle curse is that it is often welcomed. People seek out mirrors. They stare into them not merely to see, but to be seen, even if the image returned is unkind. The cursed mirror does not demand attention, it receives it willingly. It thrives on vanity, but also on insecurity. It does not need to enchant the glass, it only needs to influence the gaze. And in doing so, it twists not the features, but the focus. What is reflected is not who you are, but what you fear you are not. That is the curse, believable, familiar, and profoundly damaging. Beds can be sites of spiritual unrest, though they appear to be the most harmless and intimate places in our lives. We associate them with comfort, restoration, and safety, a place to retreat from the world and close our eyes in peace. But what if that sanctuary becomes compromised? What if, instead of sleep, the bed becomes a battleground of invisible forces where rest eludes and torment waits in the stillness? Spiritual unrest in the place meant for healing is one of the more insidious forms of disturbance because it attacks invulnerability, when the body is still and the soul most exposed. One wakes feeling as though they've fought battles in the night, not laid down in peace. Nightmares return without reason. Shadows in the room seem to breathe. In the quiet of night, the mind loosens a grip on the noise of the day, opening itself to whatever lingers in the unseen realm. A cursed bed does not shake or groan, but it steals rest from the bones and whispers unrest to the spirit. Sleep becomes broken. Dreams grow dark and vivid, full of dread and disorientation. One wakes feeling as though they've fought battles in the night, not laid down in peace. Nightmares return without reason. Shadows in the room seem to breathe. A heaviness hangs in the air, weightless yet impossible to ignore. And yet nothing is visibly wrong. The bed is soft. The sheets are clean. The door is locked. But the soul knows something is off. Such spiritual unrest does not always appear as terror. Sometimes it is subtle. Anxieties that lie dormant during the day swell after the lights go out. Thoughts once quiet begin to march in circles. Regrets, shame, fear of the future, these rise like mist when the world sleeps. Sleep is postponed, then disrupted, then feared. The bed becomes a place of mental torment, as if something unseen thrives in keeping the spirit from ever truly resting. A person may not even consider that what they are experiencing could be spiritual, and thus they turn to medicine, noise, distraction. Yet none of these soothe the underlying disquiet. There is something deeply spiritual about sleep. In surrendering to it, we relinquish control, and that moment of letting go can become a point of vulnerability. If a place has been spiritually tainted, whether through trauma, sin, or intentional malice, it may cling to the space where the soul is most open. In many traditions, the bed is where prayers are spoken, where tears are shed, where hearts are revealed in solitude. It is holy ground by its nature. But the sacred, when defiled, becomes a target for darkness. Evil does not need to destroy the whole house if it can claim the bed. Restlessness spreads, relationships fray, emotions swing wildly, and all the while the one afflicted wonders what changed. The bed, cursed or spiritually unsettled, becomes not a haven but a trap. It lures you in with the promise of sleep, then delivers unrest. The eyes close, but the heart is never still. The body lies down, but the spirit cannot. That dissonance, night after night, erodes peace and opens the door for despair. In the end, the bed ceases to offer restoration, it begins to drain it. Digital screens act as modern-day conduits of corruption, not by their nature as tools, but by how easily they become vessels for distortion. They sit quietly in our pockets, on our desks, mounted on walls, glowing, pulsing, waiting. Unlike older symbols of power, they require no ritual to activate, no incantation to unlock their influence. A single touch is enough, and with that touch we open ourselves to an endless stream of images, voices, and stories, many of which carry messages far more damaging than they first appear. The screen does not threaten. It seduces. It offers everything, yet slowly drains the soul of substance. It is not simply the content that corrupts, but the method. The screen teaches immediacy and excess. It shortens attention, interrupts stillness, and fragments thought. One no longer needs to sit in silence and reflect. The screen will fill the silence for you. One no longer needs to wrestle with boredom or longing. The screen will pacify every discomfort. In doing so, it subtly robs the soul of strength. Virtues like patience, discipline, and contemplation are worn thin. The mind becomes addicted to novelty, always seeking the next thing, never satisfied with what is. Corruption comes, too, through the disordered images of reality. What one sees on a screen is rarely true. It is curated, filtered, dramatized, and exaggerated. The world becomes a theater of comparison. Beauty is manipulated. Success is flaunted. Failure is mocked. And slowly the viewer begins to reshape their expectations of self and others. The screen tells you how to look, how to think, what to fear, what to desire. And while it claims to be a window, it behaves more like a mirror, reflecting back, not who you are, but who you are told to be. Even more insidious is the erosion of time. Minutes, hours, days vanish behind scrolling and clicking. People wake and reach for their phones before prayer or thought. The last words they read before sleep are from strangers, not loved ones. The rhythm of life becomes dictated by notifications and algorithms, not nature or faith or family. The screen becomes the clock, the friend, the confessor. It speaks louder than conscience. It argues more persuasively than truth, and because it is ever present, it begins to feel necessary. But what feels necessary is not always good. The screen becomes a spiritual battleground, but few recognize it as such. It distracts from the sacred. It dulls conviction. It invites obsession, addiction, and despair beneath a veneer of convenience. Children grow up shaped more by pixels than people. Adults retreat from reality into fantasies tailored to their desires and fears. The screen gives without giving. It promises understanding, but delivers confusion. It offers connection, but deepens loneliness. And all the while, the corruption spreads not by force, but by invitation. The screen waits, and we return to it again and again, unaware that the light we hold so close to our eyes is slowly dimming the light within. Marketplaces amplify greed and comparison, not only through what they sell, but through what they suggest. They are more than centers of commerce, they are theaters of desire, built to awaken a hunger that rarely sleeps. In ancient times, marketplaces were physical places where people traded goods, shared news, and exchanged stories. Today they have expanded beyond streets and stalls. They live in our screens, in our apps, in advertisements that follow us with invisible precision. Wherever a price is placed on something and someone is made to feel lacking without it, the marketplace has made its mark. Greed is not born in a vacuum. It grows in an environment carefully crafted to breed dissatisfaction. You enter a store, physical or digital, not always because you need something, but because something whispers that you are missing out. The arrangement of goods, the lighting, the music, the algorithmic suggestions, they do not merely present items, they tell stories. Stories about how your life could be better, more complete, more beautiful, if only you had this one more thing. This is the silent sermon of the marketplace. What you have is not enough, and what you are can be improved for a price. Comparison follows closely behind. Every item has a prestige, a promise, a cultural weight. People begin to see not only the object, but the status attached to it. Clothing is not just fabric, it is identity. Cars are not just machines, they are statements. Phones, shoes, watches all become silent emblems of success or failure. As more people display their purchases, especially through social media, the line between value and vanity blurs. Envy becomes natural. Judgment becomes reflex. The marketplace does not just sell things, it sells roles, ranks, and reasons to feel either proud or ashamed. In this environment, the soul is rarely at peace. Satisfaction is delayed, if not denied entirely, because there is always something more, something newer, something better. People go into debt not because they are reckless, but because the pressure to measure up is constant. Children are shaped by it before they even understand it. Adults lose themselves in it without realizing. The marketplace trains the heart to always reach outward instead of inward, to ask not do I need this, but will others admire me for it? And once that shift occurs, greed is no longer just a vice, it becomes a lifestyle. Even acts of generosity can become entangled in comparison. Gifts are measured against other gifts. Acts of charity are photographed and shared. The purity of giving is polluted by the desire to be seen as generous. The marketplace touches even virtue, trying to make it marketable. It turns sacred intentions into performance. All of this fosters a world where people value appearance over essence, acquisition over contentment, and status over stillness. In such a world, the marketplace does not simply reflect human desire, it distorts it, amplifies it, and turns it into a force that slowly consumes the very soul it promises to satisfy. In the end, what appears ordinary may be anything but. The mirror, the bed, the threshold, the screen, the marketplace, these everyday places, so familiar and trusted, can become subtle battlegrounds for the soul. Through quiet influence rather than dramatic spectacle, they offer entry points for spiritual unrest, distortion, and decay. The danger lies not in their visibility but in their invisibility, the ease with which they blend into the rhythms of daily life. To be unaware is to be vulnerable, but to be watchful is to reclaim sacred ground. Discernment, not fear, is our greatest defense, for while curses may hide in plain sight, so too can grace.